Hello, it's the star and host of the Decade Old podcast here. No, not Richard Travers, it's Connor Curie talking to you. God damn it! Anyway, we had some audio problems with the recording. Somebody's phone was interfering with my H4. Don't know why it happened, it's never happened before. Don't know whose phone it was, probably Gloria's, but it really screwed around with large sections of the audio. A little pissed off about it, tried to get rid of it in post, that really wasn't working out, so I thought it best to just delete those sections of audio entirely, and then I'll show up and let you know what you missed up until that point so you can hop right back into the conversation. But apart from that, I think it's going to be a good episode. We're covering 2007, which is one of my favorite years. You're going to hear a little bit of interference, but not like egregiously so. So just be aware that, sorry, from now on, we'll make sure all phones are on airplane mode or whatever. So thanks for your understanding, and yeah, enjoy the show. And I'll show up periodically from time to time to fill in the gaps wherever they may be, like one of those old Doctor Who serials where half the episodes are missing and you need Tom Baker or whoever to show up and tell you what you missed. Okay, on with the show. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Decade Old podcast. I'm Connor Geary and I'm joined by Gloria Shannon.
Hi.
Karen O'Sullivan.
Hi.
And Richard Travers.
Hi.
And on this episode we're starting work on one of my favourite years in Hollywood history, 2007. And we have chosen 4 movies from the first quarter of 2007. Hot Fuzz, Bridge to Terabithia, Zodiac, and Blades of Glory. And I believe we're starting on Hot Fuzz. So, Richard, do you want to give us the lowdown?
Hot Fuzz basically is Simon Pegg plays a really a workaholic, no-nonsense cop in London, but he gets sent off to the small countryside because he's making all the other London coppers look bad. And, he's in the countryside and he thinks this is boring and everything. But then there's a bunch of, murder accidents and the village folks are really weird, so he starts to figure that someone's behind the strings doing all this. And hijinks ensue.
Okay, well, I love this team, and I wish they had never stopped making TV shows and films.
Yeah, it's the best of the Cornetto.
Yeah, I mean, these guys, Nick Frost, Simon Pegg, I think
Edgar Wright.
I think Edgar Wright might have been involved as well.
He's
I
the
can't remember
director,
in what capacity. Yeah. But they used to do a sitcom in the
Spaced.
90s and the early 2000s called Spaced, which is like one of the formative things of my life. I thought it was one of the funniest things I'd ever seen at the time. I think these guys were made to work together.
They stopped at World... Where was it they stopped at? They haven't done anything since.
They did the third one,
Yeah.
which I didn't think was that great.
It was grand, but it was the worst by default.
I mean, when I saw Shaun of the Dead, I loved it. Every time I've seen Hot Fuzz, it's gotten better, I think.
It's just because you notice more. Like, it's more like all the little shop mans over there and shit.
This is part 2 of the they're calling it the Cornetto trilogy. That's one of its names.
Cornetto's
beginning with Shaun the Dead and ending with the third one. I forget what it was called.
World's End.
At World's End. I think these films kind of sort of took everyone off by surprise by just the artistry that was involved in it, which is several levels above the kind of craftsmanship that usually goes into comedies. Okay, so I mean, the editing is the first major thing you notice about it. It's all 3 of these films kind of have this sort of really sort of visceral, like almost horror movie style editing, and it's the juxtaposition of this really sort of serious, impactful editing, but with all the like tomfoolery, and it's like the juxtaposition between the two is what causes comedy. What do you think of Simon Pegg and Nick Frost?
They're great.
I don't think I've actually liked... I mean, I like the two of them, but I don't think I've really like loved the two of them when they're not together.
Then you don't like them without each other.
Yeah, they're just so much better together than they are without each other.
They kind of like those, like, you see them as a pair kind of situation. Like,
I've seen
they're
Andrew
both there.
Deck.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's the comparison I was just about to make. Like, they work so well as this kind of weird partnership that take one away from the other, and they just kind of become a little bit meaningless. It's a bit like, oh, you're just a guy now, you're not you.
They're able to do very different dynamics though. Like, it's not always he's the straight man and he's the stupid man. Like, they kind of switch it up sometimes, which is interesting.
They do variations, I think,
Yeah.
on the same dynamic,
Yeah.
because Simon Pegg is always the dominant one,
Well,
and Nick
well,
Frost is always kind of the sort of one that Simon Pegg has to lead along and help out and take care of. He's always been his kind of vulnerable friend, even going back to Spaced. So this movie has basically every British comedic actor who ever lived in it.
God, it does actually.
But unlike most movies, like I don't know, and this is the worst possible example, but say like Adam Sandler movies, which are just loaded with cameos. They're not just cameos for cameo's sake.
They work.
Yeah, but everyone who's in there has something fun and unique and something good to add.
They're actually a proper character in the actual.
Yeah, when they actually add
Point.
something to it.
It's not bring my mates on holidays.
What do you think of all the copious amounts of violence?
It's funny
Because I know I greatly appreciate it.
Yeah.
I don't like the bit at the end where your man's like, he's still talking and he's got like that
The church
spike,
steeple.
yeah, the church steeple stuck up like his jaw, and it's just because anything near like teeth and stuff freaks me out, and it looked like it had gone up through his teeth, and he's still talking, just like, just shut up, you moron. I know it's a comedy, but just shut up.
The funniest gag is when Simon Pegg just absolutely kicks the old one up in the nose. It's just so funny because she's like
Oh,
75.
When he jumps the fence, and it's like, but like,
You see in the next scene, she's a busted nose. Oh, old people getting beaten. Hashtags.
it was a very fun movie. I actually hadn't, like, I think I've seen it, but I don't have any like significant memories of it. So but like, it was actually really, really funny, and like
Yeah.
the little things they'd put in, like
Like even at the beginning, the cross, like the whole crossword thing when he comes into the hotel, and it's like hag and all this kind of stuff, and it's like, oh, it's just a old woman, whatever, it's 4 down or whatever it was.
that.
All
like,
those little gags.
they just had little things, like the fact that the shop had like an only one school child allowed at a time sign.
It's like constant, non-stop little things
Yeah.
that are funny.
Yeah.
That's
But
what makes it rewatchable.
Yeah, and that's what makes it like a fun comedy, because there's like so much effort went into like little insignificant things that you wouldn't notice the first time around. Like, I'm certain I'll watch this movie again and be like, I didn't notice that. Look, there's like something quirky there in the background.
I love when comedies do that, and they have like the stuff you can go back over and pause the telly or whatever, and then you see like some sign or something or some, and that kind of just gives that little extra layer of comedic value that you didn't get to watch the last time.
And because the movie's so fast-paced, it's like, even if something's not particularly funny, it doesn't outstay its welcome.
Yeah.
Like, if there's something that doesn't work in the movie, it certainly doesn't beat you over the head with it. It's just like, boom, there's like one gag, another one, another one. Those were some witty and intelligent observations I just made, weren't they? And I'd just like to take this moment to tell you that the Decade Old podcast is brought to you by the delicious taste of Mountain Dew. No, I wish we had that kind of sponsorship. Instead, this is the first point where the interference really kicked in. But at this point, we had segued into a conversation about how Americans might not fully get British humour.
I don't know how appreciated it would be in America or the US compared to here.
Well, I suppose the concept would still make sense, because you still have like, it'd be like just like a big New York City cop going out to the middle of nowhere, America, and like, you know, it's a little hillbilly town, and like, you know, I think they'll understand the idea.
I think they'd understand the plot, but I'm wondering would they understand some of the humour. I don't know, like, not understand it, but
Well,
would
it's
they
not that
like
British.
it as much as...
Is it that impenetrable?
They don't say things like, oh, fish and chips, me lady, and all that, like.
Yeah, but Americans love that stuff.
No, they don't understand it. They can't understand accents for it.
Yeah, but they love like stereotypical parodies of.
That's it. Like, they don't really go
But
for
that's
like
because
many.
they don't think it's a parody. That's what they honestly think.
Yeah, that's what I'm
it's
wondering.
like.
Would this be a horror to them? Like, as in a thriller or something? Or would it be... I'm
Would
just
they take it
wondering,
more
'cause,
seriously?
Some people say that they... Well, I don't know. I've only met a small amount of Americans. But some people say that they don't understand like the Irish and British humour.
Okay, so moving on to Bridge to Terabithia. Karen?
Bridge to Terabithia is about this kid named Jess, and he doesn't have a whole pile of friends, and this new girl moves to town, and she like encourages him to like make up this make believe world in which that kind of reflects their own reality, and like characters in this make believe land would match up to characters and issues in their actual life. And it's a very sweet movie. It turns out to be an absolutely very sad movie, as the girl Leslie died, and you have that kind of element. But yeah, it's a really good film.
I think
I
it's
like
one
it.
of the best kids movies of the decade. I can't.
It's a very dark children's movie.
I don't think I could watch it with like my nephews and niece or my sister, because they'd bawl and then I'd be bawling and then we'd just all be sitting there bawling.
You were balling anyway.
I didn't bawl. I didn't sob. There was tears, but I like honestly the first time I watched that I was just like,
Okay, so I'd never seen this movie or read the book or knew anything about it, and Gloria warned me beforehand that it was
I
extremely
didn't. Yeah,
sad.
but I didn't tell you what happened now. But
No, you
I-
didn't, but you told me it was really sad. And you were right. The last third of the movie is really sad because the main character's best friend drowns and dies. And it's
Yeah, going to their magical land, so he felt bad for it.
Because he wasn't there, he'd gone
Yeah.
off to see an art museum
Which
with his
is
teacher.
weird.
But you told me that you'd be bowling in it during it, and I guess you must have seen it so many times by this point that you're just kind of used to it.
Did you not see me crying?
I was watching it next to you, but I didn't.
I turned, Karen and Claire were like, "Are you okay?" And I turned around and there was tears like coming down my face.
Really?
My
Yeah.
I
makeup
didn't notice
ran
that.
off my face.
Panda eyes, like. But like, Fitzy.
I was bawling. I was
You-
like,
You've seen this movie several times now, and you know it's coming, and you're still.
I dare you.
That's kind of bad, though.
I
Those-
picked this movie for the whole purpose. I'd seen it once before a few years ago, and I loved it. And I wanted an excuse to watch it again. But I also watched it knowing I'd cried the first time, being a bit like, would it make me cry a second time? Because very few films that make me cry the first time make me cry a second time. Because I'm a bit like, nah, I'm tough. I can deal with this. It made me teary-eyed again.
I got teary-eyed.
But at least
during
you
this.
had a warning going in. Like, I just saw this, Karen recommended it, and I was like, this looks like some Narnia knockoff, because I had no thing, and
Did
Karen
you
has
cry?
a rep of picking, like, kind of big, late RTE movies. I was like, what the fuck, the waifu died? Well, that's not supposed to happen.
Did you cry?
I didn't cry, but I was like, what the fuck? This just came out of nowhere.
How could you not get teary-eyed when his father holds him and he's like, "It's my fault. It's my fault." It's just like, oh no, please stop, Charles. Oh my god, I'm gonna cry now thinking of it.
That kid has such a bad childhood. His dad's so much tougher on him than his four sisters. He's got two older sisters that I other than
They
being
don't-
asked to mind the baby once and doing a shit job,
Yeah,
they
they
didn't
don't
do anything.
I think they go a little bit too far with it because the boy's life is like so relentlessly grim.
Was this
He
because
gets-
the other kids are
But
complete
he
dickheads?
gets no
like?
affection from any member of his family.
Mabel,
Oh, sorry, you're
She's
right.
annoying.
Sis-
But does he?
she is annoying.
She's
She is
annoying.
I
annoying.
know, but does she
as a
kind of count because it's his job to sort of give affection and take care of her?
Well,
like,
that's
none
just
of his-
both
Ah,
two
but she
ways.
adores him. You can tell that that's the only reason she's annoying. It's because
But he never gets a pat on the back from his dad or his mum or a kind word from his sisters or anything. And it's like so just relentlessly downbeat. And then he goes to Leslie's house and her families are just like the greatest thing ever. And it's like this like fantasy dream world where
But I also
they're
think
lovely to him. And I just think they may have gone a little too far.
I also think it's told from his
Quote George Lucas.
eyes. So sometimes when you're a kid, you think that you have it the worst. Like, not that I'm sure the sisters thought that they had it the worst. You know what I mean? Like, not Mabel, but the other two probably thought, "Oh, I should look after the baby" or whatever. So it was told through his eyes, and obviously the parents. It was quite obvious that the parents were struggling with money a lot. So
Like, the dad did feel very bad that he couldn't get his son new shoes. Like, you could see that. There was a bit of a, like, in the background, it's a bit like...
Really?
big
I
time,
don't
but
think he cared.
He did. He was like to the wife, "We need new shoes. He needs new shoes."
Did you
and
not see
she's
all
like,
the
"I
times
Yeah,
that
I
he
know.
caught them like
I know.
talking about money?
That's why he was so no nonsense as well, like, because, you know, things were tight.
Speaking of seeing things through the kids' eyes, I think the Terabithia scenes are by far the weakest part of this film. And I actually think they're so weak, it brings it down from like an A to a B plus.
I think it works because in all fairness, you were probably thinking like, you know, it should look awesome, it should look
But
amazing.
it's their imagination.
But it's their imagination. I'm sorry. That's like, in all fairness, I would have had imaginary lands and imaginary adventures as
Yeah.
kids. My quality of my imagination
Was
was, a
not
lot
that
worse
good.
than those two kids.
Also, considering this is directed by one half of Klasky Slupo, we should be lucky they're not most horrifying animated creatures with big blow-up doll lips.
So I don't want to get too off topic, but just to reference something else, did anyone see The Lovely Bones?
Yes,
Now,
I have.
the Lovely Bones is intolerable because like 50% of it takes place in this sort of version of heaven where there are no rules and nothing matters, and it's, you know, it's a waste of time. And this kind of reminds me of The Lovely Bones in that kind of sense. Now, just to be fair, British Terabithia is way, way, way better than The Lovely Bones. But you have these long extended scenes of them fighting sort of fantasy creatures and running
Well,
away from
kids
fantasy
do
creatures.
that.
Did you
But-
realise that the fantasy creatures were a reflection of their real life? That every single one of those
He
Well,
did
I'll
when
get-
we pointed it
I'll
out.
get to that. I'll get to that. You have these long scenes, and they have no stakes because you know they don't take place in reality, and they go on for a really long time. And I didn't find them worthwhile because you know they're happening inside their heads, that they're just playing make believe, and they're not even,
I think it's
They're not even-
beautiful that you
and it's not even well designed to begin with. That's why I think these.
I thought
But it's
it
like
was quite
therapeutic
well
for the
designed.
kid, though.
it's showing you their like how they dealt with their issues in their life. Like even the Dark Master turned out to be the dad.
Yeah, well, I don't find it compelling. I didn't find them.
I thought it was one of the best elements of this movie.
I thought they handled it really well.
Of how to like, because the Scott character was the Scroger, which was a mix between what the squirrel and the Wombully was. The vultures, which was the birds who were attacking them, was the vulture kid.
The other brother.
And the
Yeah.
troll then is the bully girl, because remember
Janice.
before Janice even turned up in the Fantasyland, Leslie made a comment, have you ever heard about the trolls who collected like money from
Yeah.
passers-by?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. Okay, so
Remember
you've
when
seen
she
this.
tried to stop her going to the toilet?
Yeah, so you've seen this film how many times?
Twice.
Okay. And did you pick up on all this the first time around?
The majority of it, yes.
Okay, I didn't. So we were watching this, and like it was basically the last scene. You pointed it out to me and said, "Oh, the fantasy creatures in
But
Terabithia
they-
are representative of their
But
lives."
they even say it during it. It's when the squirrel appears, he's a bit like part squirrel, part the kid's name. So they mix the two of them
I
together.
just- I thought the CG was just so kind of not great that. I
Okay,
just
but-
I thought the whole thing was so thematically and visually unappealing that I didn't care to know that these things were representative of things
But
in their
also,
lives.
this is me and Karen's point. When you were a kid and you played make believe, how real looking were your monsters and your lands and your castle and all this kind of stuff?
There's such a thing as being, you know, aesthetically simple special effects that are still well crafted, and you know, just genuinely great special effects. But this is neither. These are things that are supposed to look impressive but aren't well rendered because they're just, you know, not great CG.
I don't know. I think the plot and the chemistry between the two kids.
Well, that is
and
great.
The like you fall in love with Leslie, and then the fact that she dies is just like, I think that's all compelling enough to make this an amazing movie without needing amazing.
Well, I love the real world scenes between Leslie and Jess, but I just didn't think the fantasy scenes cut it. And and you were talking about chemistry. It is really, really refreshing to see a kids movie when the kids can actually act.
Yeah.
I mean, you compare this to the first couple of Harry Potter movies.
Or raising, what was that yoke? Arizona or whatever the feck it was.
Raising Hope.
No, do you know the yoke we watched ages ago? The really boring yoke about the dead kids and
Raising Helen.
that's the one. Yurt. Jez, that was shite.
But this film deals with such dark topics. Like if you think about it, you have the Janice. Her father is beating her, yet all the kids, when they find out, like treat her like a leper.
The kids at that school though are like just
They're
nasty. Like when Leslie dies, which one of the buddy lads is it that turns to him and he's like, oh, you're the fastest one in school again because Leslie was faster than him, and then he punches him.
Do you know that punch though? It looked really comic booky. Like he didn't just punch him. Like he would fly, his chair would flying back into the wall like a fucking Jackie Chan movie. I expected to hear like Falcon Punch or something.
But like they're really nasty at that school. Those kids,
Oh yeah, they're all
really
cunts.
nasty.
The only nice person is Zooey Deschanel as their music teacher.
Oh, she's
But
a wreck
she's-
the head though. I hate her and everything.
Like if you think about it, like taking your student, just one student, by yourself to the city to go see a museum,
That's so
very
crazy
weird.
and inappropriate without even clearing it with his parents
But
first.
Zoe's so quirky and lol whimsical.
He did clear it up with his parents, but like
Was
not
she
the way.
did she?
No, not the way you're supposed to. She was just like, go ask your mom or something, and then he just went in and like asked the man, but she was half asleep. That's why she
So
thought
she
he
just
was.
mumbled a yes, like.
No. I wish my music classes in school were like that. We just like our music appreciation teacher would come in and he'd just be like, lads, okay, I've work to do your homework.
The only bit of humanity in the class as a whole that I saw is, do you remember they sang the same song at the beginning of the movie and they were all happy and they were like clapping and everything, and then after Leslie died they played the same song, but you could see that it was a lot calmer and quieter, and that's the only time I've seen that maybe they all actually were a little bit affected by it. But I had an interesting theory about why she always covers her arms.
Leslie.
Go on.
What if she was hurting herself? Because the
Jesus.
dad implies... Well, it deals with so many dark themes anyway. The dad
kids even cut
implies that they
themselves.
had to move there because she was struggling to find friends and everything. And it's like he was about to tell Jess something at the funeral, but then kind of holds back. So, I don't know. It's just...
So maybe it was a suicide attempt.
I
and she
don't, I
was not
don't
accident.
genuinely think that maybe... Like, I don't know. It's just a theory.
I think if that was an attempt to introduce the theme of suicide, it was a really half-hearted
No, not
attempt.
suicide. I don't think that she tried to commit
Okay.
suicide. I'm talking about did
If
she ever bite or kids.
if it was an
sometimes-
attempt to introduce the theme of self-harm, I think it was kind of half-hearted.
I don't know. It's
Which
just
is like,
a
oh, we
theory.
need to get in
It's
there
like-
somewhere. So
That's
halfway
like
we're
something
on.
like the
I just
writer.
find it strange that her arms are always
Even
covered.
the day she wore the dress and went to mass, she wore a long sleeve cardigan. Everyone else in that town, it was summer. Everyone else in that town were always wearing short
Are you
sleeves and nothing.
really saying that Leslie was cutting herself?
I don't know. I'm just asking.
It
That's
deals
just
with a lot of dark
theory.
stuff.
A game theory.
But I mean, that's not the way to
They
deal
were
with
both
it.
very lonely children.
But they didn't. But that would just be having it. They didn't like deal with it in any way. They didn't approach it or talk about it.
Yeah, it's just a theory.
It's
I
like when
didn't
you-
say it's definite. I didn't go, she was slashing her arms.
I really don't think she was. I don't think that's what they intended.
Yeah.
I think her whole style of dress was just to show that she was, an outsider and she was quite unique and different to everyone else.
And literally like playing outside where you would wear sleeves.
But he wears t-shirts. You see his arms.
Maybe he doesn't actually own a jumper.
He
Yeah,
does,
they're
because
poor.
he
They
ties
can't
them
afford
around
the
him.
jumpers or shirts.
Just something from there. When they first start school, the teacher gives out to Jess for I don't think he does anything. It was a bit like, I got it from your sisters, I don't want to get it from you.
Woo.
You probably won't, because you would have been the oldest of your siblings, but did you ever have teachers like instantly treat you a bit differently because they like you had an older sibling in the school before
All
you?
the teachers who taught my brother in primary school would have been dead by the time I got to primary school.
There's only 10 years between you, not fucking 20,000.
When I was 6 or 7, I ran into my brother's principal from secondary school because he had basically been the principal of all my brothers because they had all gone to the same school and they were like the worst behaved kids ever. So he saw me when I was like 6 or 7 and he was just like, oh, here we go, another one. I'll be seeing you in 5 years or whenever it was.
Why is no one talking about how much of a wreck the head Zoe Deschanel is? She's a massive wreck the head.
What's a wreck
Well, I
head?
like
She wrecks your
her.
head.
I don't know.
I'm kind of ambivalent
I
towards
hate
it.
her fake little southern accent, y'all.
When did she do a fake
She
southern
always
accent?
does that in everything. She's all like, oh,
Such
now
as?
Jess, you coming out to this museum, y'all.
Okay, well she didn't do it in this one.
She did.
Did she?
You ain't
I don't-
playing music.
No, I think I get what you're trying to do, but it's not working.
She's always, everything as well, she's all so quirky and wide-eyed, and lol, I'm so relatable. She fries me. She's like a more annoying well, okay, she's not as bad as Jennifer Lawrence, but she's kind of still annoying in the same vein as
You
her.
don't like Jennifer Lawrence?
Oh, I know, aren't I worse than Hitler?
Yeah.
Jennifer Lawrence is the queen of wreck heads.
Why? What does she do?
She wrecks heads at an alarming
How
rate.
But
so?
why?
Because she's obnoxious and she thinks she's great. She's so try-hard.
Have you actually been and seen any interviews with her?
Yes, I have, and I wish I didn't. Turn off your phone. Welcome to the real world.
Okay, besides that one.
I know, I just hate the way she's so hashtag relatable. Fuck off, you multimillionaire.
Okay.
Jesus Christ.
You don't like her because she writes hashtags on Twitter.
Oh no, that's not it. Never mind.
As in,
That's
how
her whole
how
thing.
can she be relatable when we're here living on whatever we're living on and she's there living on thousands or
Yeah, except
hundreds
we
of
know.
thousands of millions?
Yeah, except we know that money doesn't generate happiness.
Yeah, well, it's generates stress for Richard.
She just acts very self-entitled, I think. She acts like she knows everything.
I don't know. I think she talks about any interview I've watched of her. She talks about like how embarrassing moments she's had, and
Hashtag
Zoe
relatable.
Deschanel seems like, I don't know. I get what you're trying to say, but she doesn't affect this movie except for she's the reason that he's gone away.
Yeah, I'll give her she's
Yeah,
tolerable-ish.
Did
She's kind of a
Zoe
non
kind of have a purpose in this?
main character.
Yeah, I didn't really see a whole lot of purpose for her in this, other than to get Jess away.
to groom him out into the museum.
Well, I think they could have done that better by, well, maybe not better, but they could have done that without Zoe Deschanel by the dad making him stay there for chores or something.
No, because then the dad would know he's there. Like, they had to know the parents, like, they didn't know where he was. Because they came back to like, Jesus, we thought we were dead.
Yeah, but Leslie could still died if he was off doing chores.
But then he wouldn't feel as responsible because he was doing chores. It's the reason he feels responsible is he looked at a house,
I
thought
know.
about inviting her, was a bit like, no, I
Didn't
don't want you to
He
come.
fancied the teacher.
Yeah.
Zoe Deschanel didn't exist.
She was still though kind of a non-character.
She does kind of feel like an appendage. She doesn't feel like she's a part of the story.
And also, I have one continuity issue with it, and it's my only downfall really with the whole movie is, remember we were saying last night that at one point at the beginning, Jess throws like a pine cone or something and says it's a grenade, and Leslie says there are no grenades in Terabithia. And then later on in the movie, they're running and they pretend to throw grenades at these monsters that they're pretending are running after them. And then Leslie turned around to Jess and like, see, I told you that they're grenades or something like that. And it's just like, well,
I say
actually,
she was just being cheeky though. Like, she was a bit like, oh yeah, I knew there's grenades. I still won't trust, like, you know the way the kid doesn't have good carpentry skills as pointed out by Leslie, that like, you know, that she's good at carpentry and he's good at painting.
maybe she taught him.
I still wouldn't trust a bridge over a river my friend died on, built by a kid. I'm like, if the dad helped out with that bridge, maybe. But I'm sorry, no kid should be allowed to build bridges. They're not going to be sound.
It might be more safe than the rope.
Oh, well, yeah, but I would still prefer if, I don't know, he actually built a proper bridge with a responsible adult.
Okay, so when we were watching this, I said to you guys, this movie probably lost money because I don't remember seeing a kids movie as good since. And we know if one movie of this kind of sort loses money, they don't try their hand at a second one. But I was dead wrong because its budget was 20 to 25 million and its box office was 137 million.
You don't really hear about it that much. Like, that's the first time
I
I've
had
heard of it.
never heard of it. So yeah, this movie's great.
It's great though for us, but I don't know how much a kid, like a small kid,
Would pick up on.
yeah, because it's
Yeah, but there are different age brackets within just, you know, kids. There's like 12 to 14.
Yeah, 12-year-olds not going to watch Peppa Pig. Like.
There's 8 to 10.
Yeah,
or
no,
whatever.
I know, but I'm talking about like eight or below. It's just
It's
not.
too
Okay,
It's
but-
not going
Okay,
to
then
go.
show it to an
Yeah.
8-year-old or below.
I'm just saying,
Okay, so it's a good kids movie, but it's like,
pre-teen movie, I'd say.
but it's not for toddlers or
Not for very young kids.
very young kids. Okay, but I thought it was great, and it made money. So I don't know, more please.
And then, like 2 years later, Klasky Studios closed down.
So moving on to Blades of Glory, Gloria.
Okay, so I didn't technically pick this film because there was a lot of confusion because I accidentally picked a movie that was from 2006 or whatever. But then I got vetoed on Norbit, which they've all decided is the best option. So then Karen picked Blades of Glory for me. So I'd never seen this movie before. It's basically it's these two male figure skaters, Chaz Michael Michaels and Jimmy McElroy, and they're played by Will Ferrell and John Heder. I don't know how to pronounce his name, but
Napoleon Dynamite.
they're both very different, and like their styles of dancing are like worlds apart. But they're both very prestige or honoured or whatever in the male skating. It's a comedy, male skating field or whatever, a sport. And then they have this massive row on the ice, and they end up being banned for like ever, for life, for male figure skating. But then Jimmy's coach says, well, hold on, you haven't been, or his friend actually does, but the coach goes along with it, you haven't been banned from all skating. So the two team up as a pair, and it's basically just kind of how they reconcile their differences, and there's a couple of laughs along the way, but I have to say not many. It wasn't Will Ferrell's best, I have to
Okay, so
say.
full disclosure, I fell asleep with about 20 minutes left in the running time.
Yeah, it's not great.
It was just basically semi-pro on ice.
There was, see, this is a weird thing. In the mid-2000s, there was this fucking onslaught of comedy sports movies. There was tons of them. There was Dodgeball.
Were they all done by Will Ferrell and stuff?
Well, they always had like a sort of pool of actors that would seem to be in them. So if Will Ferrell wasn't in one of them, then Owen Wilson would be, or Ben Stiller, or one of them. But there was like Dodgeball, there was Talladega Nights, there was The Longest Yard. There were all these fucking comedy movies where it was like some guy down on his luck either takes control of a sports team or becomes like the captain of a sports team, and it's always like a wacky sort of alternative sport, and they're always underdogs, and then leads them to victory, and it's always these stupid fucking pratfalls and kick to the crotch gags and shit like that, and there seem to be a couple of them every year.
I have to say that's one of the bits that I laughed at the most, was the kick to the crotch thing when they were stretching.
Like, this was in 2007, obviously. Will Ferrell did another one just like this in 2008, I think.
Semi-pro,
except it was
yeah.
soccer.
No, it's basketball.
But there was one about soccer.
Oh, there's kicking and screaming
Yeah.
too.
and then
You're
there
right.
was another one about basketball,
That
which
was
was
semi-pro, yeah.
fucking shameless.
I wonder, is it because Cool Runnings was kind of successful, and around
Well, but
2000
Cool Runnings-
there
Cool
was kind
Runnings
of...
was-
Cool Runnings.
No, it's good,
completely
but, like,
different.
but
Cool-
people are just like, oh, a quirky sports thing, let's do that.
But Cool Runnings was 20 years earlier.
I know, no, that was like 92 or
Dodgeball
something.
was before this, wasn't it?
Yeah, I'm thinking Dodgeball might have been the one that started
I
it
think
off.
so, because like now do you say it, I can see a lot of similarities between what Dodgeball did and what Blades of Glory was trying to do.
This is the exact same film as Talladega Nights.
But like, there was around the time when Dodgeballs, not Dodgeball, sorry, as Cool Runnings, they would have seen it as kids. So they're grown-ups now, or teenagers in the 2000s.
No, I'm not
and it's
seeing
like,
any
let's
connection
make it
between...
Cool Runnings, but with dick jokes.
I'm not seeing any connection between Cool Runnings and this.
There's just no Jamaicans, that's the only
This,
reason.
to me, was a very meh film that you might put on in the background to give you a couple of little laughs while you had a bunch of friends over drinking a few beers or something. Like, it wasn't a film that you sit down and like, oh, I can't wait to now. Love to watch Blades of Glory.
I
It's just
laughed
like,
a bit during the phone call scene.
During the one with the two older siblings and
Yeah.
getting Kate to talk
oh,
to.
yeah, that was probably one of the better scenes.
But man, I can't think of anything. I can't think of anything particularly good to say about this, or even that bad. it was just, it's shot like a sitcom. All the characters are just weak sort of caricatures. It's not even that
Like
funny.
it's like Will Ferrell is a caricature of himself in this.
I just think he's too much mileage. Like, he can be good, but you need him in small doses, like Anchorman or Step Brothers. They're like probably all his best jokes, and these just feel like leftovers or something.
I don't like Will Ferrell. I just find him too obvious.
Oh, I
don't
don't
think he's
like Will
funny.
Ferrell a whole lot either. To be perfectly honest, as an actor, I'm just like,
Whenever I see him, I just think, oh, here's a guy trying too hard to be funny, and I just don't think he is.
He's just good in small doses with his best material. Like, he doesn't have much material to go begin with.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think I'll ever watch it again. If it was on the telly, I'd skip it. Like, it's just not something, unless it was just on in someone's house when I go in, it's not something I'd ever like be
Seek
into.
out.
Yeah.
It's put me off watching Yuri on Ice, and I've been meaning to watch that for a while, but now I'm arsed because ice skating.
well, ice skating actually looks quite impressive in real life. Like, it doesn't look like what these characters in the comedy actually do.
And then the kiss with the brother and sister at the end, I knew it was so obvious that it was coming. Everything was just
Okay.
so obvious. It was just
So-
like, oh,
Speaking of the end, so I'm giving out about these these formulaic films, and I have a feeling that I can maybe guess the ending.
go on, so.
Because, alright, so it's always guy down on his luck has to do something to make money, or has to find a way to succeed at this sport. He teams up with unlikely partners. They get along well at the start, but then they have a bit of a falling out, and that's the part where I fell asleep at.
Okay.
So
That was a good bit kind of before the end.
I'm thinking,
Well,
What was the
yeah.
last thing you saw?
it was like he storms out of the room and gets into an elevator. The Napoleon Dynamite guy. Because Will Ferrell was in the room with that girl.
Oh, right, yeah. Okay. So, go on. Just guess the ending then. What happened?
I'm thinking Will Ferrell goes out onto the ice on his own. And he's...
I'm
Well, this is
nodding.
This is one of a million. It could have been this fucking ending. Right, does he go out on the ice on his own, and then he's trying to do the choreography on his own, and then he's getting 0, 0, 0, and then the Napoleon Dynamite guy comes out, and then they finish the routine themselves. And then they do the big trick that they were going to do that they never got right, but they finally get it right.
To be fair, you're not 100% wrong.
Okay, so what actually happens is they get captured and there's a lot of hijinks
Oh,
and they
the
both have to
weird-
They
escape.
get captured.
Yeah,
Oh,
like
fuck.
both the siblings each try to capture one, the
Shit.
other two
I
hold them
forgot
up
to
so
factor
they
in
wouldn't,
the
so they
villains.
wouldn't get on
Evil.
the ice.
Siblings.
But let's say Will Ferrell's character is standing on the ice, you're right, and then your man comes in and he's covered in ice, he's been nearly drowned in the whole thing. It's
No, it's Jimmy McElroy that's on the ice waiting for
Jimmy McElroy's on
Will
there, waiting
Ferrell
for-
to come and join him.
No, so I thought it'd be the other way around, because I thought Will Ferrell's character's arc was
The
to learn to be
evil
less
sister
selfish.
twin lets it slip that they didn't, that Jimmy, or that Chaz Michaels didn't sleep with Katie. That's her name, isn't it?
Katie,
Katie.
I think.
So that neither of them could go through with it. So then he frees himself and he goes on the ice, but Will Ferrell hasn't quite freed himself yet, or he's on the
But
way,
he
he's
gets
further
there.
away. So then they get there, but then they're doing their moves or whatever, and Will Ferrell hurts his ankle.
And the sister breaks her pearl necklace, so his skate
Yeah,
hits one of the things and he breaks his ankle, so he can't do the
Iron Lotus.
Iron Lotus.
Iron Lotus.
I couldn't
So
figure
they-
out what the Iron Lotus was.
If you actually see what they did at the end, you can figure out what they were trying to do. But they end up switching places. Like, the way that
So Jimmy, the skinny lad, ends up being the lifter rather than, and the one who like kicks his leg out, and Will Ferrell is the guy who's flipped
Yeah.
and caught. But they like literally by like a couple of centimeters or an inch make the shot, and then Jimmy gets the girl, and man Will Ferrell gets, I don't know,
AIDS.
women, and evil twins get arrested, and
Or shooting the character in the head.
yeah, and then they have some weird kiss at the end, but they still get their medal. And Will Ferrell and the Jimmy and Michael Chaz, whatever his name is, win.
They shoot off to sunset.
So it's
on their
really-
jetpack
Yeah,
skates. That toilet paper scene actually made me feel sick. I actually felt like gagging while watching it.
Was this late in the film?
Yeah.
Okay, I probably didn't see it then.
the toilet paper.
Yeah.
Oh, no, I know what you're talking about. So Jimmy is like handcuffed onto a toilet, and some guy comes in. And your one has put the key in the bin, and some guy comes in and knocks a kid, and knocks the bin over, and he can see the key, and it's on a toilet, the string of toilet roll, but the toilet roll reaches all the way down to him. So he starts sticking his tongue out, and like using his tongue to bring the toilet paper closer to him, but he's essentially licking the bathroom floor as well as the toilet paper. Karen's gonna get
Karen
sick.
is trying to puke her ring up right now.
And he gets the key and he gets out.
Oh,
Like all the stuff in the bin.
Oh my god, her
Oh,
eyes
for
are watering
fuck's
and
sake.
everything. She's gonna get
Lads,
sick.
we need to get her a bib.
Right, change the subject.
I
Karen's
just
gonna
hate
get
that
sick.
scene. I've seen that movie so many times, but still, that scene.
Why
is
have you
weird.
subjected yourself to that movie so many times?
Because it's one of the many we own on DVDs. It's one of the things that's kind of tossed on when we have people over and we need something in the background.
Yeah, okay, that's fair enough.
why wouldn't you think you just put on some like Kenny G music or something? Like,
But
why
no,
would
it's just
why would you put on Blades of Glory to have a
it's
sort of
just-
background
just in the
ambience?
So
rota.
everyone can talk about how shit it is.
It's not even that shit. It's like a couple.
I don't know.
It's not
Just
good.
a bit meh.
A couple of laughs, but it's just so lazy in so many regards, in so many aspects. It's just like
It doesn't put the same
lazy.
amount of effort into what it was trying to do as any other films we
It's
watched.
just got lame characters. It's got lame plotting, lazy cinematography.
The best thing about
Everything
it is
about
that
it
was
is
an
flat.
hour and a
It
half
was
long.
a what would you call it? Just a mass production film. It's like there's just going to be one of those
That's
films in this big
Actually,
lineup.
exactly it. And it is right because it's just one of 100 of these fucking sports movies from the mid 2000s.
And I'd say the
It's
only
like-
reason that it's like even I don't know it made 145.7 million US
And
dollars.
its budget was 61 million, which is absurd.
So it did make money, but I'd say the only reason it made money is because it had Will Ferrell.
Yeah, I mean, this is just it's so
and
night.
Jermaine.
This is, Blades of Glory. It's just so night and day, compared to Hot Fuzz.
Oh, there's no.
I mean,
comparison
Hot
here.
Fuzz is a really unique, lovingly crafted film, and
And
this is
it's
just
actually
as
funny,
as
and you
Karen
have
put
big
it, this
belly
is just
laughs.
like an assembly line, fucking thing, and
It's
it's
like, what sport haven't we done yet?
yeah,
Let's move on to figure skating. We've done dodgeball.
and 61 million. So I mean, that means like 90% of the budget was above the line.
About 10 of it went to like Will Ferrell, of course. Like.
Because it didn't seem like there was much money put into the fucking
Advertising, I say, well.
into the actual film itself. Yeah, Blades of Glory,
Shite.
not great, not terrible, certainly not the worst one we've ever watched, but just
definitely nowhere near the best.
just painfully mediocre. Okay, so moving on to the last film of this episode. It's the first of a 1-2-3 punch of 2007. It's Zodiac, directed by David Fincher. It's a heavily fictionalized account of the Zodiac killings that took place in California in the late 60s and early 70s, and the lives of the investigators and reporters who covered it, most notably cartoonist Robert Graysmith, who wrote a famous book about the Zodiac killer in the 80s. Okay, I'll start off. I think Zodiac is one of the best films of the 2000s.
No.
You guys wouldn't agree?
No. It's good, but it's definitely not that good, to be honest.
I don't know. I don't because I don't even know all the movies that were brought out in 2007. But it was weird. It was very interesting, but it was a bit weird.
Well, you kind of expect that from Fincher, though.
Okay, so did you not find the characters and the dialogue really, really, really compelling?
I thought it was a great film. I won't lie, I did. Well, I wouldn't go as far as saying it was the best.
The best what, Karen? The best fucking what? Okay, well, I guess we'll never know now.
Hi, it's me again, talking to you from the future. After this, we segued into a conversation about how the detectives on the Zodiac case found it difficult dealing with the different jurisdictions that were also involved with the case.
Or the way you had Soho, you had Vallejo, or there's all those different jurisdictions that I was just trying to figure out in your head. Okay, so who has what piece? It's like,
Yeah.
I think I was a bit
puzzle.
like you. The two of us were probably trying to solve. You would have watched it before I hadn't, so I was there trying to figure out. Okay, so who has that shoe print? Okay, so
Yeah.
bear in mind I had watched it because I had to go to work the following morning, so I'd watched the first half of the movie before I went to bed, and the last hour when you got here. So I had tons of time to kind of forget and try to remember. Okay, so who has what piece of evidence, and what do we know? What don't we know?
Okay, so the police have taken a lot of flack over the decades for, I mean, I'm not a detective, I don't know, but they say kind of bungling the investigation. They certainly never really caught the guy in the end. But to Karen's point, right, this film does such a brilliant representation of the difficulties that the police faced at the times. And it not only does it do a brilliant representation of it, but it does it in a really, really enjoyable way. So there's the coordination scene at the beginning of the film where the detective, played by the main character from Eeyore, is going on to all these different jurisdictions on the phone, saying we need this one piece of evidence. Okay, we can't give it to you unless you send it to us, but we don't have fax, so you're gonna have to send it through the mail, which is gonna take a couple of days. And it's just this long process. We have to constantly step over more and more and more red tape, and it does it in a way that's funny and compelling, and actually gives you a sense of the just day-to-day difficulties that the detectives faced at the time.
I find it weird how invested the cartoonist was in it.
Yeah, well, that's
Jake
what happened.
Gyllenhaal.
I mean, I know people have said, okay, it's not. It's a fictionalized account. So
I'm going on the movie as being fictional because obviously every movie based on a true story or not has serious elements of fiction or drama in it. I don't know if the real cartoonist was that involved to the point where he let his marriage go to shams and all this kind of stuff.
I mean, he did go through a divorce. So, but we don't know if it was directly caused by his involvement with the Zodiac Killer case. I know people were mad about the people who knew Paul Avery, the Robert Downey Jr. character. They were kind of mad at his sort of portrayal because they were saying that his sort of descent into drugs and alcohol was caused by his involvement with the Zodiac Killer, which wasn't the case. Not that I'm that bothered, because as far as I'm concerned, it's taking real life events and crafting a story out of them rather than just directly portraying them or representing them.
Very similar to Robert Downey Jr.'s 20s, 30s, oddly enough.
Do you remember the scene where the Zodiac Killer ties up the couple? That's one of the most vivid memories I have from watching a film in the cinema, because I distinctly remember at the time that scene actually got a couple laughs to begin with.
Well, Hank Hill's funny.
Do you remember?
I didn't laugh. I did not find it funny.
Well, do you remember? She says he's a sociology major or something like that, and he corrects her and goes pre-law. That got a laugh.
Yeah.
This was a little
And then-
Also propane.
As much as I remember people laughing during that scene, I remember them being fucking horrified when he starts his attack, and then you get that full-on shot of the knife going into this poor woman's abdomen.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the most distinct, burned into my sort of memory sort of
Movie scenes of
because I remember so
Obviously,
well the audience's
she was
reaction
very
to it.
naive to think that him being whatever major was going to make a difference in whether they were going to be hurt or not.
But this is one of the sort of triumphs of the film, is that it's so off-putting. It makes this sort of funny character dynamics and humor with these scenes that I think they're really quite scary. This is one of the reasons I think this movie is a really sort of off-putting experience, because of the weird sort of clash of tones. There's incredible sound design and ambience in this. And you remember the coroner scene?
The coroner scene?
Okay, well, this is just one example out of a bunch of them. So they're in the coroner's office, and you've got these large, echoey, reverby, boomy sounds in the background, constantly like little like subconscious things like that make this movie sort of so atmospheric. Or the scene where they go to the taxi and they find the crime scene, and you've got the wind in the background, the creepy wind blowing through the trees and stuff like that.
See, I watch it on YouTube.
You mean this? When I think of atmosphere in a movie, I think of Zodiac.
I thought it was good. Like, it was very interesting, but it was just weird to me, and I was very weirded out at how interested the cartoonist was. He was a cartoonist, and he became
He loves
obsessed
puzzles,
with it
though.
to the point that it became almost like, for a while I was like, is he the Zodiac? Not really, no. I never
think
really
it was
thought
more the
that,
fact,
but
like, he was there when the first, letter came.
yeah.
Like, the first day, and, like, he invested, like, solving the last line, the first cipher, and it's, like, clearly he's a bit of a, like, everything has to be a certain way.
Hey, what's up? It's me again, one last time to fill in that last crevasse of knowledge, and I'm getting down there good and deep, and I'm filling it up, and my hands are getting dirty, and it feels so good. Anyway, so we finished up with a talk about how the detectives may have actually bungled the Zodiac case a little bit.
Using the opinion of one handwriting expert.
Alright, do you think that was a mistake they made?
I think
Yeah.
that's a massive
Especially when
mistake.
the detective made a point of saying that basically the handwriting expert was a bit of a, liked a few drinks type
Yeah.
thing.
And especially when the handwriting assist they also asked, let's say, the guy below the handwriting assistant, he would have been his apprentice at one stage, and had gone on to psychology or something like that, had said that in this case, because odds are the Zodiac has mental, that he'd be able to change his handwriting, because when he's in the persona of the Zodiac,
It's like multiple
feels like he's a
personality
different
disorder
person.
people can change their handwriting.
but they do it without knowing, is what this other guy had said, and that was written down in one of the case files. So really, you should be getting the opinion of more than one expert,
Right.
because like they were two people in two similar but slightly different fields who both had a completely opposite opinion on how accurate a handwriting thing can be. And a partial print, I'm sorry, that could have been the partial print of anyone. Like they said to himself, it could have been a cop accidentally when looking in, or a bystander could have, just because it was the victim blood, that doesn't mean it was a killer's print.
But it definitely seemed like it was your man Lee.
But I think the movie wanted us to
I think
feel
that,
that it
I think
could have
that
been that
is, but I think in reality that guy is also the main suspect still.
way. It is.
Yeah, it
But-
said at the end, didn't it, that he's still the number one suspect. But then, remember he went to the house of, whose house did he go to? And he was really creeped out by them, and he ran out.
That's such a brilliant scene, I think.
Oh, it was so creepy.
It was so creepy.
He was the guy who did the movie post or something. He owned a
Oh
theatre
yeah.
or something.
Well, they thought that Lee had done the movie posters, and then he
No,
was
it was
like,
another guy. It was Mike, was it? Was it Mike Mitchell?
forget.
They thought,
Well,
yeah.
oh,
Well, it was Rick Marshall was
Rick
the person they were
Marshall,
looking for.
there you go. All
they
short
thought he
nicknames.
had done the movie posters, and then your man was like, "Oh, it's the closest match we've had," and then all of a sudden it just got.
And the
It
whole
went from
basement
friendly
thing.
chat to like creepy.
Well, I
It
mean,
wasn't-
that's another scene where the design just plays a
Mhm.
massive part of it. The cinematography is fucking, but the set design is amazing, because that basement is like
I
legitimately
noticed,
the creepiest looking basement in the world, and like, but also on the point of the sound design, like he asks, "Is there anyone else in this house?" And then you hear the footsteps upstairs. I think that scene is legitimately like really, really quite frightening.
I noticed a slight continuity issue at one point of the film.
Go on.
Lee's name
Yeah.
in the credits and in the subtitles is spelled Leigh.
Oh, like Janet Leigh.
Yes.
Right.
On his name tag, when he worked in that hardware store and the cartoonist went to see him, they spelled his name Lee.
What about when they spell Connor with two N's?
That just annoys Connor.
Yeah,
It doesn't
that
annoy
annoys
me. I just noticed it because like I was watching it with subtitles.
Yeah.
So like I would have seen the spelling of Lee come up tons of times, and then I just saw his name bad and it's spelled L-E. I'm like, which one's wrong, the subtitles or his name tag? And then I got to the end of the film and they were like, Lee's still the main suspect, and like, it's the name tag. Continuity.
LEE is easy to fit in a tag anyway.
That's probably the reason, but still.
Damn.
Is jurisdiction still such a major problem in crime in America, or have they fixed that problem? I know states still have a main issue with, like, you know, once you're across state lines, you're in a different jurisdiction. Like, this was all in California for the most part,
I
correct?
think they'd have easier access to evidence these days, just
don't
because
know.
lines of communication are so much more open than they used to be, at the very least.
Well, like, surely when, like, you know, it must have been so hard, like, so not fairness, it's just the state of California, and you're still within your own state, you have all these jurisdiction issues.
Mm.
So, like, in all fairness, if you suspect that they can be linked, is there not like it goes to some head?
Yeah, or to create a different group that's cross jurisdiction to deal with it. As in, like, let's say if it was in Ireland and it was like Galway, Limerick, Clare or something, getting a couple of officers from every station to band one group for whatever amount of time to get the killer.
I mean, this is basically what the film was saying, right? I mean, they could never catch the Zodiac killer because you had a ton of people working on it across different jurisdictions who all had different opinions and could never agree on a single
If they
thing.
were all working on it separately, what I'm suggesting.
Yeah, but
should
I mean-
have done
They
is
weren't
work
even
together.
But they had the case broken up into fragments, and they couldn't even get on the same page on those fragments.
Yeah, because, like, there was one jurisdiction who had known about a murder ages ago, and they were like this, oh, we don't even think it's a Zodiac. They were, like, you know, the one that
Yeah.
had the Hurley that something was etched onto or something. So they were all, the smaller jurisdictions were all trying to solve their own just individual murder cases without really caring that it could be linked to
Yeah.
several others.
But I mean, the Zodiac killer was he was really unorthodox, I think, because he would change up his pattern, or he would do things that wouldn't make any sense. So he was either quite a bungling guy who just did things at the spur of the moment, or he was actually really smart and deliberately sort of staged his murders to throw off the police, to make them look like they weren't connected.
And, like, there's some of them that they don't even know if it was just a Zodiac claiming credit for
Yeah,
other people's
pulling
murders.
the old ISIS move.
I think the TV presenter guy, like, you know, the
Brian
one,
Cox.
that one, the one that Zodiac kept calling, and he seemed to be really happy that this killer was calling him, and
And
like,
he felt,
you know,
I felt like he was on his side or something.
yeah,
like he just needs someone to talk to.
I
and
felt
all
he
this
was
stuff.
very, very weird. Like, I honestly thought there was something up with that guy too, because it's like, this is a serial killer, and you seem very happy that he's calling your house. Oh, my maid talked to him. Like, you know.
I'd say he's happy he was calling the show. I know it wasn't actually him, but because his ratings probably went through the roof.
Okay, so I think Zodiac, in conclusion, is, I mean, I don't know about you guys, I think it's incredibly compelling. A really, really, really engaging story of these people's lives unraveling, trying to catch a killer, and the way it's executed with really, really atmospheric sound design and, you know, David Fincher's typical great direction of actors and the great cinematography. I think it's one of the best films of 2007 and one of the best films of the decade. And like I said, it's part of a sort of a 1-2-3 punch of, I think, all-time great films that came out this year.
What are the other 1 and 2?
Spoiler alert, we'll get to that
Yeah.
later.
Spoiler, but in the words of the Jigsaw Killer, oh yes, there will be blood.
Way.
Sorry.
And as what Sinn Féin always say, it's no country for old men.
Okay, so David Fincher is one of those kind of directors who gets, you know, his films greenlighted, not so much because they make money, that's not to say they lose money, but Hollywood studios, they do still like to rake in a couple of awards every year, and I think that's why people like David Fincher and Paul Thomas Anderson, who will get to continue making films, because, I mean, the budget was 65 million. To think that it was only 4 million more than Blades of Glory blows my fucking mind. And its box office was 84 million, which is not bad, but not great either. But like I said, I think this movie was made for awards anyway, and I'm sure it cleaned up. So that brings us to the end of this episode. As per tradition, we pick the film we like the best and the film we like the least. So I'll start. I thought Zodiac was the best by far, and I think Blades of Glory was the worst by far.
Blades Bridge to Terabithia is my favourite because I've seen it so many times and I love it and it makes me cry every time. And then Blades of Glory is definitely the worst.
For me, it was fairly close between Hot Fuzz and the Bridges to Traralgon, but I ultimately have to go with Hot Fuzz, and Blades of Glory is the worst.
I'm on the same path as you. Blades of Glory is definitely the worst. There's no competition for that slot this time round. I'm stuck between Bridge to Terabithia, which I'd seen before and I still loved the second time round, and Hot Fuzz, which I'd never actually watched before as far as I know. I think I'm going to go for Bridge to Terabithia, but if I probably watch Hot Fuzz again, I might change my mind.
Okay, so that brings us to the end of this episode. We'll be back next time covering the second quarter of 2007. I think it's going to be really entertaining because we've got a lot of great films to cover. But until then, it's goodbye from me, Conor Geary.
Bye for me, Gloria Shannon.
Bye for me, Karen O'Sullivan.
Goodbye, Propane from Hank Hill.